Okay, so talk about your misinformation. The government and the mainstream media are lying to you about the state of our economy and the consequences of our national debt. So let's talk about it, and let's talk about what you should be doing right now. This is the Hey Ed YouTube channel. I am your host, moderator, and all-around nice guy, Edward Anderson. So today I want to talk to you about the misinformation that's being pushed upon us by our government and the mainstream media about inflation, the state of our economy, the state of the banking system, and the debt system, and a lot more. So let's start by talking about the mainstream media's role in this, and then we're going to talk about the inflation propaganda and the debt propaganda. And then I'm going to be telling you exactly what you should be doing right now. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we had a 60 Minutes interview highlighting Jerome Powell. And it was a big puff piece talking about how heroic this guy is. If you missed that interview, let's take a look.
Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, may have just rescued the economy from inflation without throwing millions out of work.
Jerome Powell, our hero. In a little bit here, I'm going to tell you why this character is one of the leading parties responsible for the mess that we are in. But if you listen to the mainstream media, Jerome Powell single-handedly saved our financial and economic system.
Economists expected a recession, but now inflation is tumbling while employment is near a 50-year high.
Really? Okay, this is the game that the government and the mainstream media plays. They massage facts and figures and that have nothing to do with reality. For one thing, if you're one of the millions of people out there who are unemployed or underemployed, you're not feeling all that optimistic at the moment.
Job market.
Politicians just talking about how the economy is so great. I just want to scream from the rooftops. And how come no one can find a job?
And for those of us who have mortgages or rent payments, to make, everybody's feeling this issue across the country, particularly in the major Democratic liberal cities, because of the really bad economic liberal policies. And of course, the poster child for the modern economic disaster has to be New York City.
Record rents, record homelessness, and now evictions have tripled. What the heck is happening to New York City?
Now a new emergency. Families on the street.
Hundreds of tenants across the city continue to get notices saying they are behind on the rent.
Half of New Yorkers can't make it. They can't afford it.
How far behind are you on your rent?
Maybe like 9 months.
This blue line is the cost of living in all of Manhattan.
Meanwhile, this family of 10 is now searching for a new home.
You're at the mercy of the landlords.
Okay, so the average American out there is seeing their cost of living getting out of control. And again, this is not just happening in New York. This is a nationwide issue. Matter of fact, it's a global issue. But you know what? Again, let's highlight the single biggest issue that most Americans are facing right now, and that is their housing expenses. And again, if we look at New York is the most stark example of this issue.
Bad news if you're a renter. And that's because evictions are surging right now. In fact, last year, city marshals carried out 12,000 evictions.
And it's not just the renters. Mortgage delinquencies have been accelerating at a dramatic rate. You're seeing new homeowners priced out of the market. The younger generation particularly are hard hit because they don't have money for the down payment. We are going to see a housing collapse pretty soon here. I think sometime during 2024, there's going to be a crisis in the housing industry. So if you're in the market right now to buy a house, I'd encourage you, wait a little bit. My guess is you're going to see another 2008, 2009 event. But even with this obvious information about the issues with the housing market and the day-to-day living expenses by average Americans, you would not know that any of this is going on if you listen to the government officials. The mainstream media and your government officials are telling you that there's nothing to see here, that there's nothing wrong with the economy, and there's nothing wrong with the real estate market.
You believe it's a manageable problem?
I think we're not going to
see bank failures across the country as we did in 2008.
I don't think there's much risk of a repeat of 2008.
Okay, so more Propaganda. Yes, banks are in trouble. There are bank runs going on right now. People are pulling their money out of the banks. People are losing faith in their banks. People are pulling money out of their banks, which is what, by the way, what you should be doing right now as well. You should be getting your money out of your banks. Maybe not all of it. I keep 2 or 3 months worth of bill paying, in the bank. Everything else I get out. Because one of these days, you're going to wake up and your bank is going to steal your money from you. So you should be taking measures right now to reduce your exposure to your bank. Get your money out of your bank. Get at least some of your money out of your bank and put at least some of your money into gold and silver. Our fiat currencies, our money is being debased, and is being debased through government policies. Did any of you see this disgraceful performance by our president during the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl is Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. When buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips, but they're still charging it just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break.
Yes, Mr. President, you caused this. Your policies caused this. And you know what? It's not just the liberal Democrats, by the way. We have a lot of Republicans that I have no use for as well. We have essentially a uni-party in our country. There is no fiscal responsibility in our government. The primary cause of inflation is money printing.
But is the national debt a danger to the economy, in your view?
In the long run, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path.
Listen to that. This guy is actually admitting that our fiscal policies are unsustainable. Wow. You got to give him a little bit of credit for that, but really, my guess is he made that soundbite for legacy purposes. He wants to be able to say that he was the adult in the room, when actually he's one of the key players responsible for the situation that we're in.
What would you say is the single most important factor for the future of American prosperity?
With your permission, I'll name 2 things. One is, I think we need to just remember that we have this dynamic, innovative, flexible, adaptable economy, more so than other countries. And this is the big reason why our economy has come through so well.
Yes, in the old days, that was true. When America was an actual true capitalist system, that was true. But with all these new regulations being put on the small business owners out there, they're driving small business entrepreneurs out of business. So he's trying to sound like a free market capitalist right there. But that's no longer the case. I'd like to hear from any small business owners out there. Has the government made your life easier or harder?
The other thing I'll point to for the United States is really since World War II, the United States has been the indispensable nation supporting and defending democracy, security arrangements, economic arrangements. We've been the leading voice on that, and it is clear that the world wants that. And I would want the United States to know, people in the United States to know that this has benefited our country enormously. It benefits our economy.
Again, that's ancient history. Yes, that used to be the case, but America has squandered its prestige through its money printing policy and through their, foreign aid policies. They squandered it all. Have any of you out there heard about this BRICS alliance that I've done lots of videos on? The world right now is coming together to attack, to debase the U.S. dollar. If you saw the interview with Vladimir Putin and Tucker Carlson, Putin said, 3 years ago, Russia did 85% of their trade in U.S. dollars. Now they're down to 13% of U.S. trade in U.S. dollars. And it's not just Russia, and it's not just because of the sanctions being put on Russia. The same story is true throughout a lot of countries in the BRICS coalition. And the BRICS coalition is going bigger and bigger and bigger. Right now, it's the world against the U.S. Our prestige has been steadily diminished over the past few years. Okay, so we have the mainstream media running cover for all these liberal spending policies. But government policies regarding spending, these people have no respect for money, and there is going to be a price to pay. And whether you think so or not, it affects every single citizen, not just in our country, but around the world. We have a very big, a catastrophic debt bomb that is going to go up at some point because our spending policies, our fiscal policies are unsustainable. We cannot sustain it. There's going to be a price to pay. And when that day comes, we're going to see in the 2008, 2009 financial crisis look like a picnic. It's going to dwarf what happened during the Great Depression. Things are going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I think it's going to be relatively soon. And I don't know what the catalyst is going to be, but there are a lot of minefields out there. And the overriding issue with all of this is the debt bomb. Don't believe the propaganda out there that we can sustain this, that it's all manageable. There is going to be a big debt crisis that's going to affect everything, including any money you have sitting in your bank. Get your money out of your damn bank. Okay, so why is our huge $34 trillion national debt an issue? Well, let's kind of remind you of where we stand at the moment.
The United States is the world's biggest defense spender. In 2022, it spent over $800 billion on defense. In contrast, the national debt surpassed 100% of the country's GDP, which brings us to the obvious question: how did the US end up with so much debt in the first place? One key reason is America's many conflicts. The post-9/11 wars, the United States has spent or sanctioned around $8 trillion on its wars.
$8 trillion spent on foreign wars in the last 20 years.
Meaning they've spent $8 trillion on wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and on strengthening America's global security presence. $8 trillion. These wars were financed almost entirely through debt. Experts say the US borrowed some $2 trillion for its global war on terror. By 2030, interest on these loans would spike to $2 trillion. So the US will have to pay $2 trillion in principal and another $2 trillion in interest. So $4 trillion in all. And what happens if this interest keeps piling on, if they don't pay? By 2050, the interest payment alone would be worth some $6.5 trillion. So America's many wars are burning a hole in the taxpayer's pocket.
Okay, so $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. What's the big deal? That's the way these people think. They have no respect for money. They think that they can just print more money if they need it, because what's the big deal? And, to add insult to injury, do you know that during the Super Bowl, while the Super Bowl was going on, our U.S. Senate passed a bill to send another $90 billion to Ukraine and Israel? I can get behind the Israel thing, but $60+ billion, an additional $60 billion to the war in Ukraine. And by the way, there's no accountability. Billions of dollars are not accounted for. We don't know where it went. Well, I know where it went. It went into the pockets of Zelensky, a lot of his cronies, and a lot of, probably donors to the Democratic Party. This is a corrupt system. These people are corrupt. This is a huge money laundering operation. The war in Ukraine has nothing to do with defending democracy or the borders of Ukraine. It's a money laundering operation. These people are corrupt. They're getting rich off of our taxpayer dollars. Now, as for the stock market, let's talk about the stock market for a hot minute.
Tech layoffs balloon in January as the Wall Street rally lifts the Alphabet stock, the Meta stock, and Microsoft stock to new record highs.
Okay, so in the stock market, there's what's called the Magnificent Seven. Okay, the vast majority of the move in the stock market is because of the top 7 tech companies. So they have been doing really well. They've been benefiting really well. But the vast majority of other stocks had not been participating in this rally. Now, the recent rally in the stock market has all been based on a sugar high, based on the manipulation of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, saying things like, we expect to keep interest rates where they are, maybe even lower. So Wall Street has been expecting the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates because inflation is under control, right? I mean, you have to remember that above all else, Wall Street likes free money or cheap money. So the idea that interest rates could be coming down because they have inflation under control now has led Wall Street to be optimistic and to be bullish. But this is fake. You have to understand that Wall Street is a game, all right? They're always reading the tea leaves, and they're trying to see where the market's going to be 6 months from now. The stock market is a discounting mechanism. They look for what's coming and they want to be in early. That's why the market's been rallying right now, not on actual fundamentals, but on the hope and the promise that interest rates are going to be coming down again because the Federal Reserve has fought inflation. Jerome Powell, our hero, is saving us from ourselves. He's pulling us out of that deep economic decline, right? Well, then something happened yesterday.
The new CPI data is out, and holy cow, the market was not expecting this. Stocks get crushed, and the bond market, the yields are exploding higher.
Okay, so I'm recording this on Wednesday, February 14th. And let's take a look at what happened yesterday when the punch bowl was removed from the Wall Street trough. Okay, so this is the 1 month chart, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and you can see what the market did yesterday. That huge day, it was down about 500 points. Now today, it tried to have a little bit of a rally, but you can see at the moment, it's giving it all back already. Okay, so let's step back a little bit and let's take a look at the 3 month chart. Okay, so I'm thinking that the near-term high in the market is in. The level you really want to watch short-term here is this guy right down here at around the 37,200 level. If that support gets taken out, we have a huge downside coming our way. Now, whether you're talking about a stock or the market in general, big dramatic moves usually come from unexpected events. And yesterday was a shocker to the street. Now they're thinking, well, as it turns out, inflation is not under control like you've been telling us it is. Now, the numbers that they put out excludes food and energy. I mean, okay, the government, these people are corrupt. These people are lying to you. This is propaganda. They're not telling you the truth. Anybody out there who does any kind of grocery shopping or pays rent or makes mortgage payments, you know what's really going on. Now, the government's answer to everything is to throw money at it. Just print more money, print more money, print more money. Consequences be damned. We'll worry about that later on. Of course, they never get around to addressing it. Their solutions are always stupid. They're always wrong. I mean, let's take a look at the most recent acceleration in personal debt and global debt.
Private individuals, companies, and whole countries have been struggling with steadily rising debts for over 15 years. The problem has been severely aggravated by the corona pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Does this mean the world is about to collapse under a huge mountain of debt? The world's total debt currently exceeds $300 trillion. That's a colossal number with 14 zeros. To pay off this debt, everyone in the world would have to work for 3.5 years.
Okay, so total global debt stands at $300 trillion. And the cause of inflation are not the snack food companies. The cause of inflation is government money printing policies. Let me remind you how inflation works.
As we can see here, there's a money supply that can be used to buy goods. In order to meet the costs of the state, more and more money is printed, but the quantity of goods remains the same. People can buy more with the new money. Retailers respond to higher demand by raising their prices. Inflation takes hold.
Okay, so it's government monetary policy and the world's central bankers who are responsible for inflation because they're the ones printing the money. Okay, so in my opinion, we can trace our current financial condition back to one major event in our recent modern history.
I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
All of the problems that we see today in the monetary system are a direct result of the decision made in August 15th, 1971, to abandon a fixed link back to gold.
August 15th, 1971. That date should be burned into your brain. Politicians hate gold. Why? Because when our money was linked to gold, when it was pegged to gold, that put constraints on spending. Politicians don't like to have any constraints on their ability to spend. They want to spend as much as they want. And we've seen since 1971, our government has been on a spending spree. Anything they want to spend money on, they have absolutely no compunction to spend more money. And central bankers are happy to go along with it because they make money off of this sham. Remember, the central bankers, the Federal Reserve, by the way, it's a private bank. It's not a government agency. It's a privately owned bank. So they're not there to look out for us. They have private parties that they answer to. But now with this recent news about how inflation is not really under control, okay, the idea that interest rates are going to keep getting cut is more or less off the table. I don't know if it's off the table or not, but it's less likely. Wall Street doesn't like that. And it was a shocker. They were surprised with that news. You and I, who do grocery shopping and we make mortgage payments, we're not surprised. We know the inflation is there, but for some reason, they're surprised. You know, it's like the line out of Casablanca. I'm shocked that there be gambling going on in this casino. You and I aren't shocked, but so these people are just starting to learn what you and I already know. And that's why yesterday's news on the CPI was a shocker. And that's why the stock market was down so dramatically yesterday. And the bond market was down. Now, this has massive consequences to the banking industry. I'll try to keep this video relatively short, so I'm not going into all that. If you watch all my other videos, you know why. But again, as far as the powers to be are concerned, they're happy to let banks out of business. They want to consolidate the banking industry out there. Right now, you know, there's about 3,800, banks out there. That's way too many. They want to get our financial system down to the top 4 or 5 banks. So they're happy to let these banks go out of business so that these other banks can snap them up. Of course, that's going to create chaos for you, for anybody who has money sitting in a bank account. That's why you got to get your money out of your bank, or at least reduce your exposure to your bank. Okay, so listen, let's tie this all up in a bow. There is a huge, massive propaganda campaign going on by the mainstream media and by government officials relating to inflation and the debt issues. But there's going to be a point in time here, it could be pretty soon here, where it's going to be hard for them to paper over it. They're not going to be able to ignore it. Something's going to happen. Some major bank is going to announce that they are insolvent. And then as soon as they make their announcement, within hours, you're going to see a lot of other major banks make their announcements. You're going to see a housing crash. You're going to see an economic crash. You have to start preparing. Okay, so the 3 things that everybody should be doing right now is, number 1, reduce your exposure to your bank. Number 2, put some of your money into gold and silver. And number 3, establish streams of passive recurring income. Stay tuned to my channel because I'm going to have some ideas for you. If you don't mind, could you support my channel by hitting that like button? And you can also follow me on Twitter if you like. Ed Anderson, live from Minnesota, signing out.
Copy that.